Do you guys, who knows here that you could actually name cells? Internally, Excel knows this cell as H3, okay? That is a very unimaginative name, but sometimes you want to be able to refer to a cell with a specific name for a lot of different reasons. For example, in my sheet over there, certain things are in the cell DA60, okay? I'm not going to remember that. I put it right over there so that I wouldn't delete or screw up anything by mistake. So I can give it a name. If your formula bar is visible right here, there's a little box. In fact, if you hover it over it, it says name box. Okay. I'm going to give this cell a name. It has to be a set of contiguous characters, and it cannot be a name that Excel has property rights on. You cannot call it H5. Your Excel already has property rights on that. But I can call this compounding frequency. And I'm going to call this annual percentage rate. How you capitalize doesn't matter. Then when you write a formula and you refer to them, it actually, suppose right here, I want to calculate my period rate, the rate that you would be charged in 1 month, okay? Oops, equals my interest rate. As you can see, it puts that into formula as annual percentage rate divided by my frequency. And I'm going to make that percent unhappy, right? These are essentially my inputs, and I like making my inputs into anything. Have a green background, and I have the Welsh green, and I'm going to make that Welsh red. Let's make it white and bold. Copy, right click, paste formats. Of course, this is not percent, so I'm going to make that general again. All right. I probably should have done this something else. I'm going to shift these down. Periods 1, 2. Do you guys know how to easily do a list of repeating numbers? You have a pattern, 1, 2. Select that pattern. Come to the southeast corner. Southeast corner. Your cursor becomes a thin black cross. Click, grab it, and roll it down. As you can see, as I roll it down, there's a little rectangle over there that tells me what the last number would be if I stopped. I'm going to only do the visible range here. Of course, I'm going to get rid of these now. And I'm going to put in arbitrary cache numbers, random number between 100 and, or between 10 and 30 times. I'm going to make that a dollar format. I don't suppose I have to tell you what those hashtags mean. That means the number is too big to show in the current format. So you go to column, double click, it auto fits. Okay.
Could you show us what you typed in there?
Sure, I know. That's a function that generates a random integer between the lower limit and upper limits you provide. If you want to generate a random number between 0 and 1, the function is just rand with no arguments. All right. And functions like that are called volatile functions. Anytime you recalculate the sheet, or enter something somewhere, it generates new set of values. Sometimes that's not what you want. You generate the numbers, you just want to fix those values. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy and right click, just values. Then they're just fixed numbers. Okay. I want to calculate present value of these. We already have a function that does this if the time periods are contiguous and starts with 1. So I'm going to calculate present value here. That function's name is NPV. Unfortunately, it is not the net present value you're thinking about from capital budgeting. It is just present value of future set of cash flows that starts in period 1 and next and periods increase by 1 period every time. The first argument is the discount rate. In this case, we're going to use the period rate. The second argument is the set of cash flows. I'm doing this only as a check. Okay. In fact, I'm going to move these here. So I want these things to be available to me. And by my own convention, when a cell depends on a formula, I like to think of it as an output. So I want to put a red light. Background is red. Foreground, I'm going to make it the Welsh yellow. You know, that red light to me means it's red light. Stop. Don't do any changes to it unless you know what you're doing. Greens are inputs. Again, this is my own color convention. If you don't like it, you know my sentence on that. Do your own. All right. Now, we're going to write a function in VBA that's going to calculate present value of an arbitrary set of cash flows. And I'm not going to restrict ourselves to periods starting at 1 and increasing by 1. So it's essentially a generalization of the NPV function, right? All right. So let's see. Let's go to our Visual Basic. Any function starts with this statement function. Okay. It lets VBA know that you are doing a function. You give it a name. Again, you cannot call it log because log is a function that's already claimed by Excel. So I'm going to call this generalized NPV. It's going to have some inputs. Okay. What are the inputs? I'm going to call that I rate. The capitalization does not matter, but you're going to see that it actually helps you with later stuff. And since I'm doing explicit data typing, I should tell Excel what kind of data I rate is. It is a double precision number. So you say double. Double precision means internally, computer has a precision up to 15 digits, roughly. Okay. If you do single precision, that would be about 8 digits. In this day and age, don't be stingy. Back in 1968, that mattered. Okay. Because a double precision number takes a lot more space in memory compared to a single precision number. And my second argument is frequency. I'm going to call that IFREC. I'm going to make that double. Maybe you have non-integer numbers of compounding frequency. And my third argument is iCache. I'm going to introduce iCache as a range. Okay. So there's a data type called range. Then we're going to kind of manipulate the things in the range. And I'm going to also type the output as double. It automatically inserts an end function line. So anything you're going to say, tell VBA to do between those two, it's going to be the output for generalized MPV. Now, in any routine, whether it's a function or sub, there are certain intermediate calculations you make, right? And sometimes it's a good idea to name them. We call them local variables. The nice thing about local variables, even if they're named exactly the same, precedence always go to the local variables. So you have to declare them. And I always like putting a indent using the tab. You don't have to. Oh, by the way, any line that starts with a single quote is a comment line. And for execution purposes, it's completely ignored. But either as a note to yourself for future, something doesn't work. If it's a complicated code, tell what this function does.